We often take for granted that we can play pretty much any game we want to in the United States. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 games that actually got banned in entire countries. At number 10 is Devotion. Now, Devotion is this really cool stylized horror game that I really enjoy. It uses color in a really vibrant but terrifying way. It really does a good job. Now, the game itself is set in the 1980s, so it's very interesting that they hid in a very anachronistic Easter egg. There is a poster you can interact with that says Winnie the Pooh and Xi Jinping. Now, Xi Jinping is the president of China, and people claim that he looks like Winnie the Pooh. I don't care whether he does or doesn't, personally. He does, though. If you make media that is calling him Winnie the Pooh, and even in some cases simply just mentioning Winnie the Pooh at all, and try to disseminate it in China, you get banned. Now, I am only describing this. I have no idea if this is bannable in China. However, the developers of Devotion were not simply mentioning it. In providing both names with no further context, they're basically saying he looks like Winnie the Pooh. At number 9, Call of Duty Modern Warfare was weirdly banned in the Russian PlayStation Store. Now, the only real information we have on it is that Sony decided, and when I say decided, I'm putting quotes around it, but you can't see my hands. I'll read their statement. At the heart of Modern Warfare is a completely fictional story, carefully crafted to please all players. Sony decided not to sell the game in the Russian PlayStation Store. We look forward to the release of the game digitally for PC and Xbox on October 25th. Now, Sony never looks forward to the release of a game on other consoles. That's not how business works. I would speculate here that this is the result of political pressure that Sony caved into, which Microsoft and I guess just Activision in general did not. Steam certainly doesn't act like a regulatory body in various countries. Or maybe Sony just loves the Russian people too much. More than their money, even. Doesn't that sound silly? To me, it's obvious they all got some kind of political pressure and Sony responded to it. At number 8 is Danganronpa V in South Korea. South Korea is often lauded as the amazing, beautiful, capitalist counterpart to North Korea's, well, we all know what North Korea is. But hey, guess what? They aren't super in love with free speech either. They have a regulatory body called the Game Rating and Administration Committee, which has to rate all games that are released in the country. And when they saw Danganronpa V, they were like, no, I'll read the law they cited. There is a concern for societal disruption due to an amplified portrayal of crime, violence, sex, or etc., which in turn would incite criminal behavior or copycat crimes. Hey, did you know that a copycat crime is when a criminal actually commits a crime and somebody else does it because they realize that it's possible? Anyways, there was a murder case that happened around the release of the game, which was very grisly and involved murdering children, which the game is kind of about that. So I understand the sensitivity. However, lesson here, folks, always be critical of the state, whether the state supports a communist economy or a capitalist one. At number 7, Fallout 3 was banned in India way back in 2008, which was cited as having cultural sensitivity issues. Now, Fallout 3 contains mutant two-headed cows, and the cows share a name with Hindu scholars and preachers. I'm talking specifically about Brahmin, who are generally some avatar of sacred learning in Hinduism. That's, of course, a very simple definition of it. You're welcome to do further research. I probably understand this one, however, as somebody who thinks that it's quite possible for people to make up their own minds on things. Maybe censoring the game wasn't the best idea, or they could have just asked for the cows to be taken out for the India version. I don't know. Because, I mean, let's just go ahead and say this. The Grand Theft Auto series has been released in India without any problems, and I promise you, even if it's not specifically offensive in the way that this is, it's a much more offensive game than Fallout 3. At number 6, the Western version of the PlayStation 4 game Judgment, a very cool game that I personally enjoyed quite a bit, had an actor in it who was arrested for cocaine use. He loved the cocaine. Now, here in the United States, we don't ban stuff because somebody used cocaine. we generally kind of go, whatever. Hope they don't get too tangled up in that and die of an overdose. And then we consume it like the pigs that we are, forgetting entirely about the ramifications of cocaine use. And, I mean, the game didn't get banned. However, they did change the guy in this country, which is weird. None of us know who that actor is. None of us know that he used cocaine. None of us would have cared. I mean, if you needed to change it for Japan, sure, but we didn't care. You kind of made extra work for yourselves, Sega. But to be fair, Sega is also the king of making things difficult on itself, so, I mean, it's kind of to be expected. Judgment's a great game, play it. At number 5, Iraq banned PUBG. And unfortunately for a lot of Iraqi kids, that was a place where a lot of them actually met up without being monitored by their parents. The Iraqi government imposed a ban more or less because the game was popular. The reasoning is that it's addictive, but there's a lot of other games you would have to ban if simply being addictive was the problem. I guess it's kind of addictive to have friends, though, which is what a lot of PUBG players that were affected by this ban ended up saying. Because apparently life as an Iraqi youth is fairly alienating and difficult to find time, space, and a place to have friends. Internet cafes end up being a place where people do that. All it basically did was piss off young people. They continue to play it, continue to use it. I mean, the Iraqi government has heard of VPNs, right? At number 4, Great Britain banned a sexy dungeon crawler by the name of Omega Labyrinth Z. Great Britain has a video game ratings council very similar to South Korea's. Theirs is called the Video Standards Council, and they refuse to give it a rating, effectively banning it in the country because you can't sell a game without a rating in the country. The VSC said this: they believe the content in the game would have strong appeal to non-adult players, which is an issue that would be unacceptable to the majority of UK consumers, and more importantly has the potential to be significantly harmful in terms of the social and moral development of young people in particular. Now, apparently some of the mechanics of the game are collecting underwear and bras and rubbing women's bodies using touch controls in order to free them from imprisonment, it's silly sounding, let's just go ahead and say. Little sus. But the game itself also got canceled in the US because the publisher that had signed on was like, actually, we don't want to bother with it. Now, like I said, I'm not really intending to look into the sexual content of a video game, but this one apparently has some stuff that's a little bit more objectionable than what I've described here. At number 3, Last of Us Part 2 got banned in a number of countries in the Middle East, and there really wasn't any reasons given. It's kind of just like, hey, you can't buy this game if you even try. Now, it's speculation it's because there's some LGBTQ content in the game, which tend to get banned in several Middle Eastern countries, regardless of the level at which they're implemented in the game, which I personally don't care about at all. Now, you can buy the original game and the remaster in those countries, which is interesting, considering that the Left Behind DLC is included in the remaster. There's some inconsistencies in their banning processes, let's just say. At number 2, Australia's pretty ban happy with games. I mean, you've probably heard a story about them banning a game at some point, but sometimes their bans actually do something to the game. For instance, when DayZ got banned in Australia, they actually managed to get Bohemia Interactive to change the game worldwide in order to unban it, which they did. One of the primary reasons that Australia banned the game was the inclusion of a certain plant that is now legal in certain parts of the United States as a healing item. This is something that Australia frowns upon. But yeah, they modified it worldwide because they didn't want to separate the Australian players from the rest of the world. And finally, at number 1, way back in 2008, Manhunt was not only banned in New Zealand, but if you had the game, if you possessed the game, if someone saw you and reported you as owning a copy of Manhunt, they would come and arrest you, fine you for $2,000. If you had shown it to anyone under 18, you would be liable for a further fine of $20,000 and imprisonment for up to 1 year. You would have to import the game into the country in order to do this because you had absolutely no way of getting it otherwise. They were very serious about this ban. I mean, it's not like a fluffy, cuddly, nice game or anything, but I think we've seen worse stuff at this point. New Zealand. Well, that's all for today. We've shown you enough of the forbidden knowledge. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think, how much you play these games in your country. And if you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now is a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable all notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. And we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.